We are 365 Sports. Craig Smoke, Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoke. And Grayson Grundhoefer joins us, Sic'Em365.com recruiting analyst and also college football analyst and co-host of the Bearcast. Grayson, we have devoured every piece of information possible of how to look at this Texas Tech game in Lubbock. And even though we know Baylor has something that can help them win on the road like this, we haven't seen enough of it. What do you see?
Yeah, I think that this is a really interesting matchup. And in my eyes, it's really going to come down to who the more physical team is. And I know when you look at Texas Tech, you don't really look at them as this, turn around, hand the ball off, move people up front team, but they play really physical. Their defense, their intensity, everything about them screams physicality outside of, they're not an elite running team or elite up front, but that will get there in time. But for Baylor, they have the horses up front to be physically dominant, and they need to do that in this game. If you look at who Texas Tech has played this year, you got Kansas State, who is a top 10 running football team in the country. But outside of that, Tech hasn't played a rushing offense that's inside the top 40 in the nation. So I think there's room there for Baylor to really exploit them. I know against Kansas State, they gave up over 8 yards per carry, 360 yards on the ground. And they also played Texas in Lubbock, and Texas ran for only 150 yards. But, guys, they really got away from the run game. They only ran the ball 30 times. I think if Texas would have pushed it a little bit in the run game, they probably could have gotten, 40 carries for 200 yards or something along those lines. Which is kind of what I'm expecting from Baylor in this game. They're going to have to establish the front. They're going to have to establish the run and be successful. And my target number for them on the ground is right around that 200-yard number. They can get there. It's going to be really tough for Tech to beat them because I think that just tells you kind of what Baylor is doing, right? Like if they can get to 200 yards, it means, okay, they're probably converting first downs. They're going for it on fourth down, and they're probably converting. They're being efficient as an offense. And I think that could really tell the story of this game, and it's something they definitely need. And also, they need Blake Shapen to take care of the football because that's absolutely been a problem for them over the last couple of weeks.
Hey, Grayson, I think that if they are that efficient on offense and can run the ball and shorten the game a little bit, that's going to be huge because the defense, where I get stuck on this one is I just don't see this defense mounting much of an attack against that Tech offense. That's where I just don't see how these guys, because they have not put it together like that this year.
Yeah, and I can see that, but I would also say that I'm not sure that Tech is going to be able to run the football, even if Baylor only brings, 3 or 4 guys up front. So I think it's going to allow them to maybe drop guys into coverage. Now, that didn't work so well against West Virginia because Baylor just simply was missing tackles at a unprecedented rate. So if they clean that up, I think they can slow down the Tech run game with very few guys in the box. And if they can do that, then they might be able to confuse Baron Morton a little bit and force him into some mistakes, which, teams haven't really been able to do over the last 2 weeks. But I think he is still a young guy, so there is still room for him to make some errors and make some mistakes, especially in an environment that is going to be very, juiced and jacked up for this game. And while that favors the home team most times, I think it also makes the home team kind of press a little bit to try to make big plays and try to, really rout Baylor. And I think they could make some mistakes because of that.
Grayson, looking back at last week, I guess what was sort of your thoughts coming out of that game? Obviously, the first half looked like it was going to be smooth sailing, and the second half a little bit not so much. Another game where they weren't able to play a complete game. Do you think that they know by now, or they're capable by now of being able to do just that? Because I think it feels like this weekend would be the opportune time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's really frustrating because I think so far this year, I'm not going to count Texas State or Albany, but when you watch 2 of their best performances, which were Iowa State and Kansas, the reoccurring theme was, or at least for me, is, man, they should have won that game by a lot more than they did. And so I think you're exactly right. Like, can they put together a complete game? And it's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen because last year they were so good in the second half. And this year they've been much more of a first half team, at least it seems, outside the Oklahoma State game. So yeah, they need to put it all together. As far as the Kansas game goes, they went back to RVO, and we talked on Friday about this, and y'all asked me, who are they going to give the ball to? Who's going to take these carries? And well, we saw it. Richard Reese was fantastic. They were able to give him a massive workload. And then also Quaylon Jones came in and contributed really well also. So I think it's very interesting to kind of see them get back to that RVO style. And that's massive because it's something that they're going to need to do this weekend in Lubbock. Because like I said, I just truly believe that game is going to be all about physicality. And Baylor's culture, at least what they've built under Dave Aranda, has been all about that. It just hasn't been that way so far this season. So they need to get back to that. And if they do, I do think they can put together a complete game finally for the first time this year.
So Roderick Thompson, I think it was a couple of years, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, that he broke a long play against Baylor in a game that Baylor may have won with the butt fumble that was not called on the snap. He's 220. Taj Brooks is a fire hydrant, 5'10", 230. It seems like they don't have somebody that breaks the long run. They're capable of it, but they don't do it often. And yet it looks like their running backs are going to be the possibility of more physical. Is that what you see as well, that they have to just contain the missed tackles on those two big dudes?
Yeah, definitely. They are big dudes. Usually they're not necessarily home run hitters. They're not, like you said, I know Roderick broke one. And obviously if you miss a tackle or you blow an assignment, anyone can score a touchdown on you. But in general, these guys are more, goal line. They're going to be tough to stop in the red zone. They're going to get you first downs. They're going to move the chains and wear on a defense. So, yeah, they're good at that. But if you can tackle them and if you can especially, if the first guy can at least slow them down and allow the rest of your defense to get to the ball, that's massive. And I think that they'll be able to slow them down. Tech is not an elite rushing football team by any means. They really haven't ran the ball particularly well on anyone. I know they did against West Virginia last week, but I'm kind of throwing that performance out the window. That was just one of those snowball effect type games where West Virginia got down and then they basically gave up. So I wouldn't read too much into that. But if you look at the K-State and Oklahoma State game, they didn't run the ball at an exceptionally high level. And so therefore, I don't anticipate them being able to do that against this Baylor front.
Grayson, how big is the return of Khalil Keith to the RVO?
Oh, it's massive, guys. And I saw it last week against Kansas. I mean, he's not even nearly up to, his full conditioning or getting the full reps. It was about 50-50 with him and Gavin Byers. And while Gavin played good and Gavin has played well in stretches, Khalil is just a difference maker. And when you watch him move people in the run game, it's extremely impressive. And he showed flashes of that in the Kansas game. And I think as the season progresses, you're going to see more and more of that. And they absolutely need him to be effective in the reps that he gets this week against Tech. I'm still not sure that he'll get all the reps, but I do think that split will get more to maybe 70-30 or something along those lines.
Grayson, the recruiting side of things and just the momentum side of things. And I think right now you see in the Big 12 with Oklahoma and Texas leaving in a couple of years, there's this kind of race and jostling for, the teams who want to fill that void. And Baylor certainly feels like they want to be that team. And Tech, I know, is obviously investing heavily and, doing everything that they can. Knowing kind of the players involved and the recruiting ties and all those different types of things. How important of a game do you think this is to win for both teams, just in terms of, kind of momentum and not only what it means right now, but what it could mean moving forward as well?
Yeah, this game in that regard, I think, means a lot more to Tech. And the reason I say that is because Baylor won a Big 12 championship last year. Like, they've proven, where their ceiling is as a program. Tech has not done that yet. And I think that's why I consider, these head-to-head matchups are far more important for a school like Tech, because they need something to show recruits, right? They need this ability to say, hey, we can match up with a Baylor. We just need more talent. And as we get more talent, we can potentially compete for a Big 12 championship. So this is a huge selling point for them. I will also say they're going to have a ton of recruits in the house for this game. This is probably going to be their biggest recruiting weekend with the whole Patrick Mahomes Ring of Honor thing, it being a night game on Halloween. I mean, they're going to absolutely fill that stadium up, and they're going to put as many recruits in there to watch this game as possible. And so if Baylor went in there and was able to beat them in that kind of environment in front of a lot of their recruits, I think that would be massive as well. But on the Tech side of things, they're wanting to show all these recruits like, hey, look at this environment. Look at what we just did to one of the top teams in the conference, the defending Big 12 champs, and just show that they're well on their way to getting there. So I think it's bigger for Tech, but obviously for both, it's pretty big to win those in-state games.
I don't know how factual this is, but someone on the site who's a part of our site mentioned that there is a chance that even Josh Fleeks could be a guest with Texas Tech this week. That would be kind of a mind game thing, and there seems to be that's probably something that's going on. Would you agree?
Yeah, that's definitely, there's definitely something to that. I mean, everyone's going to be looking for transfers and looking for guys who can help elevate the talent on their roster. And I would also say, with these in-state schools, a lot of these guys were recruited by multiple schools in the state. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense that they feel very comfortable with certain coaching staffs or recruiting guys, or just built a good relationship with those guys during their own recruitment process. So, I mean, it makes total sense, right, that, schools like A&M, Texas, Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, like, they know all the players on each other's teams for the most part, as long as they weren't out-of-state guys. So, yeah, I think you'll see some of that for sure.
Grayson, thank you very much. Grayson Grundhoefer with us, Sic'Em365.com, co-host of the Bearcast and much more. Baylor and Texas Tech coming up, of course, tomorrow night, 6:30 in Lubbock. Our pregame will be tomorrow at 4:30 until 6. We'll take you up until right before the kickoff and have much to get to with that. Thank you, Grayson. This is 365 Sports.